Hello, everyone. This is Jon Bale speaking, and I'd like to welcome you all to this open house on the Mindfulness Suite that we'll be going over today. Just so you know, this is more of an informal session, and so if you ever attended one of the other webinars with the BFE, this will be less structured. We're not going to be making you all ask questions at a certain time. I'm not going to be going over a very strict plan of what I want to look at. I'm quite happy with just answering questions as we go, and if you guys want to look at something more specifically or ask questions about a certain item, I have no problem going into that a little bit in more detail. I've only actually done one open house before, and that was for the Zucker's grind game, feedback game, and I think that went pretty well. So I'm hoping this will go well with all of you. In case you do not know who I am, I'm Jon Bale, although if you really want to call me Jonathan, you can. I'm the BFE's research manager. I also do a bunch of online instruction with the BFE, and I'm also one of the primary software developers. For the Mindfulness Suite, I was the only software developer, and it was Dr. Khazan and myself who worked directly together in creating the software package over about a year-long amount of time. Just as a quick check, I want to make sure that people can actively hear me right now and that you're able to ask questions. So again, the whole point of this is that I'm going to be showing you the Mindfulness Suite, giving an introduction to it all, and I want to make sure that you can actually interact with me if you feel like it. So the main way you can interact with me is if you were to go to the GoToWebinar control panel, and you can see there's actually a questions tab or even a chat tab. And if you want to ask me something or make a comment, you can type it into there and I can see it. So right now, just as a quick check, can anyone attending, can you just write a little message in there saying you can hear me or how's it going? I'm just making sure that you guys have that ability. There we go. A few people saying, hello, John, Gerard, Afshan, Margaret. I can hear you. Hi, Jillian. Lots of people. Excellent. Perfect. Silvana, Horst. Perfect. Okay, so I'll be glancing back and forth from that as the session goes on. So if you do ever have something to ask or say, then just type it in there and then I'll keep glancing back and forward. Alternatively, if you do prefer to verbally speak instead of typing, that is a possibility as well, as long as you have a mic on hand. And to do that, you just click this little raise hand button. It looks like an open hand icon, and that'll let me know you feel like talking, and then I'll just unmute you and let you know. If you ever click it once and then want to unclick it to say you don't want to speak, just click it a second time and that should remove it. There you go. Some more people writing. Oop, Tracy, I can hear you too. Perfect. All right. So, as another little thing before we get going, I'm just coming off as a cold, so I might have to mute myself once or twice to blow my nose. You might hear it a little bit in my voice right now. It's that time of year, so it's pretty normal for this to be like this. Okay, so the Mindfulness Suite. This is why you're all here, and this is what I'd like to show off. The BFE actually just released this suite preemptively at our last annual meeting, but we didn't make a big grand show of it because we were just having a few people test it out at that time. But now we're sort of really amping up, letting people know we have this available because we're really proud of this software package, and we think it's a really good biofeedback tool for individuals who either are new to using biofeedback or have already been using it for a while and just want very much a polished and beautiful software program. Originally back in 2014, end of 2014, Dr. Khazan came to us because she had recently released her book back in late 2013, and she was looking to have some people perhaps look it over and apply some of the protocols she discussed into more an active, easy-to-use package for individuals. It was actually myself and Dr. Khazan who spent a lot of hours chatting online, and we met a few times in person, discussing the possibilities for this. And so I have a copy of her book, and I went through it, and she had very specific protocols, most of which are included in the book, some which are not, that she really wanted to turn into this one-stop software tool. Now, one of the big things that does set the Mindfulness Suite apart from other software programs is that it ties directly into her book, and it really does give a sort of a clinical guide from the mindfulness perspective. Now, I myself am more of a software developer I do some biofeedback, I'm not really familiar with the mindfulness aspect of these things. I mean, I understand it. I can describe to you what it is based on what I've chatted with Dr. Khazan, but I don't personally use it myself. My understanding is that it's really just it joins or marries well together with biofeedback, just because when biofeedback doesn't work, when the person is not having an effective heart rate variability session, or they can't slow down their breathing, or they can't get their skin to go down by relaxing, the mindfulness aspect is really good at picking up where biofeedback doesn't do well, and vice versa. Mindfulness is really about just being aware of the moment, accepting it, and just moving on with there and not letting it get you down. People who have a terrible time at raising their finger temperature with biofeedback because they just can't get the feedback to work. Mindfulness is really good because it's really teaching them just to relax. It's fine if you can't do it, just let go, and then the temperature will start going up. As Ina has said, and a lot of other people realize, if you have to really try, then that's usually when you stop doing well at biofeedback. It has to be something sort of naturally clicks, and it's hard to get to that stage where it naturally clicks. And that's why mindfulness is really good when biofeedback doesn't quite work, and vice versa. Some of the people attending here do already own biofeedback equipment or use the equipment with the software, or use the equipment that this software can be used with, and others do not. And so I just want to highlight the fact that for this Mindfulness Suite software package, it's for use using the Biograph Affinity software and thought technology equipment. So what that means is that our software sort of jumps onto their main program like an add-on, and you already have to own the thought technology equipment in order to make use of it. The Mindfulness Suite can be used with either the Procom 5 or Procom Infinity encoders. What that means is just that you have an encoder where it only records data from up to 5 sensors at a time, or you can record data from up to 8 sensors at a time. The Mindfulness Suite is generally the same, regardless of whichever encoder you own, although the Procom Infinity, one of those 8 sensors, we record data from a few more sensors at a time, whereas the Procom 5, there's only 5 inputs available, so we can only record from up to 5 sensors. The exact sensors that we do use in the software are as follows. And so for the Procom 5, the one that takes less sensors, we use the respiration, heart rate. The heart rate can either come from the blood volume pulse or the EKG sensor, depending on which sort of heart rate sensor you prefer that you have. It also looks at data from skin conductance, peripheral body temperature, and then 1 or 4 muscle sensors. The muscle sensors are called MyoScan Pro, but MyoScan Pro doesn't mean anything to anyone. Primarily, when you use the Mindfulness Suite for Procom 5, it's really respiration, heart rate, skin conductance, temperature, and 1 muscle. This 4 muscle option is actually just a sort of a separate training feature that Ina wanted to add in, where you can actually just place 4 muscle sensors on a person if you own those, and then just record data from those 4 sites simultaneously. It doesn't actually come up in any of the general assessments that we do. Now for the Procom Infinity, the encoder box takes more sensors. You have a few more available slots for sensors, and so we do allow for data to be recorded from 1 or 2 respirations. The 1 respiration sensor is usually placed on the abdomen. If you have 2, then the second one is going to place on the chest, so for that shallow breathing. We have the same deal with the heart rates, so BVP or EKG, depending on your preference. When we have skin conductance, temperature, and then we record data usually from 2 muscle sites, but like with this Procom 5 version, we do have 4 muscle sites available for like a side training protocol. Quick question coming in. Ooh, I use Procom Infinity. Okay, perfect. So does it not work with Nexus 10? Unfortunately, Christine, that's true. It only works with the thought technology equipment just because that's how our Mindfulness Suite adds on. It adds on to their main program called Biograph Infinity, and so it only receives its biofeedback data from the thought technology equipment placed on a person. Okay. So this is like a quick breakdown of the different aspects of the Mindfulness Suite, and we're actually going to go look at these in detail because it's much more fun to look at on a biofeedback screen as we're recording data. So Many of these will be familiar and some will be less familiar, but either way, this is everything that's included in the package. So we have a psychophysiological stress profile assessment, along with an Excel report that takes that data and arranges a nice little easy manner to look at. We have a relaxation profile assessment. This is a new addition that not a lot of people have, where once you know the individual has certain modalities to train or needs to work on certain relaxation skills, we actually have an assessment where you try different relaxation scripts or meditation techniques, depending on which mindfulness paradigm you prefer. And over a 3-minute period, you get to try 5 different ones on the person. You get to compare how good they are at relaxing with these 5 different relaxation or meditation techniques. We have the resonant frequency evaluation. So if you're really trying to teach the person to breathe at resonant frequency, we have this simple script as well as an Excel report that goes with that. And then we have these pre-group training screens based on Dr. Khazan's preferences for biofeedback training, what modalities to put together, and how she wanted to look. Naturally, we include documentation that explains how to use the software, all the technical aspects. If you find any spelling errors, you can blame me. I wrote the software manual. And we also have some extra meditation scripts provided by Dr. Khazan herself. So she uses these scripts as in she's typically reading them to the client when they're in her office or they're going through a session. And these are the same scripts you'd actually use with the relaxation profile assessment. One thing to be aware is that our software is based off her book, but we do not give you a copy of Dr. Khazan's book. So you do have to purchase that separately. I know you can purchase as a PDF online. That's how I own one. It's nice and easy to get. You can alternatively buy the book. There's plenty of places that sell it. But just so you know, it's not included within the software. The software manual does reference the exact pages of text and interpretation that the book gives you, but we could not provide you with the book itself. Now, one thing I do want to point out is that for those of you who are very experienced with biofeedback or already have all this technology, a lot of these different aspects of the software don't exactly seem particularly new. And that's right. Like, a lot of it is familiar. It's done within a style that Dr. Khazan wanted, with sort of aim to follow her mindfulness perspective. But that being said, one of the big differences between the mindfulness software in like a general way and any other software package that BFE might have or you might have seen from other people is that it actually looks really nice. That sounds silly, but we put a lot of effort to actually make this look beautiful, because a lot of other biofeedback systems, and even, to be fair, some of the BFE suites, they look ugly, and who wants to use that? It's a bit shallow to say, but often clients, if they come into your clinic and they see whatever software program you use with them, I mean, if it looks like it's from the 80s, if it looks dated, if it just doesn't look pleasant, they're going to believe it slightly less, or they're going to want to come back a little bit less because, like, oh, maybe this person has no idea what they're doing. This seems like they bought this a while ago. I don't even know if it's relevant anymore. Again, it doesn't affect, the ability to measure statistics within a session, but if it really comes to just wanting to have that little extra edge, having things look nice do matter. So let's actually just quit out of this PowerPoint, and let's actually jump on over to look within the software itself. Before I go ahead and do that, just a quick show. When you do purchase the software, you get these documents that come with it. So obviously there is the software manual, and that's pretty obvious. And you can read through all the technical aspects of using the software. It walks you through everything. You get some sample client data, just so you have an idea of what these sessions look like. We're actually going to be using some of the sample client data today. And then there's these relaxation meditation scripts, as I said. And so you have, I think it's 8. Sometimes I'm not really good at counting. And ideally you just print these out, and the first instructions just tell where the person to be, but otherwise it's you reading to the individual and sort of going through this script for getting them to relax from this mindfulness acceptance approach that Dr. Khazan uses. Now, I'm not going to open all of these documents, but I'm just giving you a quick show of what 1 or 2 of them look like if you're very good at reading. Here's an autogenic training one. So you see she puts in the points exactly as to slow down your discussion of whatever you're saying to the individual. And she goes through this. These are very useful, I find, if you don't already have these types of scripts ready in your practice. Okay. Just as a quick reminder, this session is being recorded, so you'll be able to look back at this if you're frantically taking notes, or if you're rushing. There's no need for that. So let me just open this Biograph Infinity, which is where the Mindfulness Suite adds itself into. And let me just show you how you pretty much initiate into the software. So I'm going to go to this Quick Start button up here, and I'm going to choose the Mindfulness Suite category. First, let me pick my client. That's me. Hopefully you don't have all these other different types of data clients here, because that would be silly, because you're not a software developer, only I am. And you choose your category right here of Mindfulness Suite. There's 4 different choices right here. It's really just Procom Infinity, so that encoder box for recording data, or Procom 5, the smaller one. And then your choice of whichever heart rate sensor you're using, blood volume pulse for BVP, or EKG for electrocardiogram. I myself right now am actually hooked up to a Procom Infinity, and I have the BVP sensor because it's just easier to put on my hand in one of these sessions, so that's what I'm going to choose. And you can see right here all the different available session protocols are easy and quickly there to initiate. We're actually going to choose the psychophysiological stress assessments right here, stress profile. I'm just going to click OK to continue, and it's pretty much that easy and fast. This is confirming what sensors I already have plugged in. And so, ooh, my respiration sensor unplugged itself. That's not good. Oh, there it is. Perfect. I can solve this. Hold on. Okay, there you go. The software is just letting me know that my abdominal respiration sensor was not plugged in. Repeat. There you go. I fixed that problem. So we made these different protocols, again, look nice, but also to help a person along. Like with some of the other assessments that the BFE has made in more recent past, we've included a lot of instructions in these so that individuals know exactly what's coming on and they know how to guide their clients. The vast majority of these protocols in the Mindfulness Suite are for one monitor, and so you don't need a second monitor. The only time we have second monitor type stuff is when you do biofeedback training. So you have one monitor options and 2 monitor options if you have that second monitor. One of the useful things about just having some second monitor stuff is that it really lets the client focus more easily on the feedback of the task at hand without having all those extra statistics sort of rolling in the background for people to see. Ooh, quick question coming in from John. On the stress assessment, does it measure thoracic respiration? It doesn't measure it separately just because there's the assumption that although a person might be breathing more or less, either with the chest or the belly, that they're still breathing together and the respiration rate will not be different. It shows the thoracic inhalation and exhalation curve, so you'd see their inhalation and exhalation, or whether it's very deep or not, but it won't show a different respiration value just because they're always breathing together. So yes, you can tell if someone is breathing too much with their chest and not enough with their belly, but we don't give it a quantifiable number just because we already know they're going to be the same, because it's pretty, I'd be quite impressed if someone can breathe at 2 different rates with their chest and their belly. Does that answer your question, John? I think I'll probably type in yes, but we'll see in a moment. Yep, there it is. Yep, thanks. Just a reminder, yeah, anyone, if you have questions, please just go on right ahead and ask them as we go. So the psychophysiological stress profile assessment, it's made up of 9 activities you can see right here. The total recording time is 14 to 18 minutes. I say 14 to 18 because we have these 2 little optional activities right down here, listening stressor and recovery 3. And so Dr. Khazan doesn't always use these particular stressor and recovery with her clients. It really just depends on the circumstance when she finds that they perhaps live a certain life where they're surrounded by noise or they're constantly getting stressed by the environment around them, and she'll want to see how this listening stressor might affect them. But if that does not seem to be the case, then she'll just skip over it because it's not necessary. I'm actually very impressed by the listening stressor. It's actually a sound file that Dr. Khazan made in conjunction with another individual whose name I'm momentarily forgetting, but it's incredibly annoying, so it's effective at its job. So this is a very similar sort of stress profile that you might see in some other places. This listening stressor is one of the things that makes it different. Her math task is a little bit harder as well, but there's an initial baseline where the person sits down, they get to just relax the situation. That lasts 2 minutes, and then they start going into the series of stressor recovery, stressor recovery, stressor recovery. All the activities are 2 minutes in length. Just quickly jumping along to show you it looks. Again, something I want to accentuate is that this tends to look a lot nicer than some of the other assessment profiles you may have seen before. Or at least I think it looks nice. Some people told me they prefer blue instead of purple, but I decided to go with purple for once because that makes things interesting. Oh, okay. We might be able to guess. I'm a little bit stressed because my muscles were actually pretty tense right there until I sat up and decided to relax some more. And yeah, if you understand Celsius, you know that 18 degrees Celsius is reasonably low for someone's fingers. So let's pretend that I'm not stressed while giving this presentation. Let's just move on ahead. So at the beginning of each activity, we let you know exactly what's going to go on. Here's the baseline. Ask subjects to quietly with their eyes open. It's very simple, straightforward. And then you can record this data. You can monitor this data. All this information is automatically going to be inserted into an Excel report at the end once the assessment is done recording. And so if you want, you could frantically write down numbers, but that is not necessary because the system will be keeping track of it for you. Just one of the key things to remember is that usually you probably want to make sure that they are recording nice, reasonable, raw heart rate data. And so you're probably monitoring that to make sure they're not fidgeting their hands too much. I just moved the sensor myself for a moment because the data does not look very clean, so I'm doing it right now. What is the cost of this suite? I believe the cost it's either $150 US or $169. I always forget the price because our suites fluctuate mostly between that price. I'm pretty sure it's $150. Another question. Thanks. Okay, no problem. For John, you asked the question a little bit earlier about thoracic. Because I don't have the sensor on, we can see right here that this lighter gray blue line is just flat. So that's where that thoracic respiration data would be. But since the sensor's not plugged in, it's just a flat line. For any of you out there who only own 1 or 2 sensors, you can use you can use the Mindfulness Suite with less than the full package of sensors. That's absolutely okay. It will simply just ignore the fact that sensor's not plugged in and everything will be a-okay. Oops, I'm just looking. Oh, yeah, I was just confirmed by my colleague. Yeah, it's $150 in the BFE shop, the suite. So the lower of the 2 prices I suggested. Ooh, Jillian likes mystery discounts. Excellent, Jillian. I'm glad you do. So I'm not actually going to be sitting through this entire assessment. And yes, $150 US, Jillian. I'm not going to be sitting through this entire assessment and recording one fresh for you because that would be a little bit boring for you guys. I just sort of initiated this with real data because I wanted to show you how easy it is just to initiate an assessment if you don't already use this sort of system. At the very end of the baseline, it just finished up a recording, so it immediately jumped to this instructions screen for the Stroop test. And it's a very standard sort of activity. You've seen this before. For those of you who do not plan on using this in English, we can actually change the Stroop activity to be a non-English language. You just have to let us know what language that is, and then we can probably work something out. It's not automatically included in the package, but if it's something easy, we have no problem. French, Italian, Spanish, sure, that's okay. If it's not one of those languages, just let us know, and then we can probably work it out anyways. So just hit a key to continue, and I'll just go ahead and we'll start doing this activity. If none of you mind, I'm actually going to quit out of this now, and I'll quickly just show you what this looks like rapidly using pre-recorded data, because it lets me jump forward and back in activities, and I much prefer that because I think it's faster and more beneficial for you all instead of sort of sitting here and going slowly. If that's okay with everyone, I'm going to do that right now. This will be your moment to send a message if it really bothers you if I were to just jump ahead. No messages coming in, so I guess that's a-okay. All right. So let me close this down. Okay. So because I'm going to be using some saved data I have right now, I'm actually going to instead go into this database because that's easier. And let me just go down to my mindfulness data. And stress profile right here. Okay. So in replaying, I can actually just jump between activities. Her math task is a little bit harder, specifically because Dr. Khazan likes to give people math problems that if you're math whiz, it's no problem at all because they're all slightly trick questions. But for an average person, they would be rather stressful. Now, they themselves are not looking at the computer screen, as one would expect. However, in the software manual, we actually give you the listed instructions for the math task. And if I just rapidly show you those right now. Oops, cancel that. Where are these fun numbers? There you go. So her list of math questions that you start asking a person, it's easy enough, 1427, 37 times 9. But as we get harder, it's like 1 6 plus 1 8, 266 divided by 7, 35% of 350. They're all sort of trick questions, but any individual who hasn't done math like this for a while will get stressed. And so it's a nice little appropriate activity, I think, from my perspective, is at least how we think you should be doing it. Now, I'm going to try this. I don't think it's going to work, but I want to see if my microphone can pick up the listening stressor activity. Now, it might not work, so you'll have to let me know if you hear anything, but I'm just going to put my microphone up to my sound when I click the button to continue. As I said before, this listening stressor is not always used with everyone, and so if you want to skip it, all you have to do is hit the Control and left arrow key when you're recording the data live, and I'll just jump to the next activity. No problems, no questions asked. And I'd like to say thank you to Peter McKenty. He's the one who created the stress noise with Dr. Khazan. There you go. Now I don't have to feel so bad for having not remembered his name off the top of my head. All right. Let me know if you can possibly hear this to the microphone. But if you don't hear anything, yes, you can? Okay. It starts with a lot of sort of baby noises, then eventually transitions. It starts with office noises, and then transitions into sort of baby crying and I don't know. It sounds like crashing cars. I don't know, but it's annoying. It is definitely stressful. So that is effective, I think. Well, there you go. That's that noise. The final activity of the assessment is a stressful recall. So that's much more familiar. It's what you've seen before in other stress activities. So the individual gets to choose exactly what sort of moment they want to recall, and they get to think about it for a little bit. But otherwise, it looks or seems exactly the same as one would expect normally in these types of assessments. So I'm going to close this down now, and I'm actually just going to jump over to the Excel report that we generate from that information. Stress profile, export data. So the Excel reports, it's not a new thing that the BFE has been doing. We've been doing it for a while, and it tends to look a little bit the same between different assessments. But either way, I still think it's a very nice, clean report. We show you each type of data from the different sensors, as well as a few different heart rate variability statistics that Dr. Khazan likes to look at. And I like to think that it's very much an easy report to look at. Muscle tension, both the sensors, skin conductance, finger temperature, and whichever unit you're using, Fahrenheit or Celsius, heart rate, respiration rate, and then her 2 heart rate variability statistics. So she looks at heart rate max minus min. It's, from research perspective, a little, what's the word I can use for it? No, it's good for training, but not very good for accurate statistics in long term. But it's very good for at least showing an individual how well they're breathing, because if they do slow relaxed breathing, this value goes up quite high quite immediately. And then there's the more, statistically rigorous and more difficult statistic of the heart rate variability spectral frequencies. And we do this in terms of percent of total power. And so she has these all written down for each of these activities. Now, question coming in. John, is the data computer artifacted or manually artifacted? The physiology data is actually manually artifacted. And so there's a section in the manual that I've changed to describe how you artifact it. The software is not capable of automatically artifacting physiology data like this. We can do automatic artifacting for brainwave information, but we don't look at brainwaves at all, thankfully. That would get much more complicated. And so you do have to manually artifact this, and there's a section where I describe how you artifact first the raw heart rate signal, and then from there you look at the other signals, which usually don't get as many artifacts. But yes, you do have to manually artifact that. This report itself does not show any sort of interpretation. I don't describe to you how to tell whether it's good or bad. We have a couple of presentations on that in the BFE shop. I actually gave one of them. But otherwise, we actually reference back to Dr. Khazan's book, where she does talk about interpretation of psychophysiological stress profiles. And so she does give you information, trends to look at, and how to examine these things. Off the top of my head, aka referencing the presentation I gave on interpreting client data, you really want to look at trends for the certain statistics. Are they good trends? Are they bad? Then you want to look at the raw values themselves, see if they're too high or within norms. And then you really want to discuss with the person why they're there with you, what are the main problems, then focus on that if that's an issue. So for example, for skin conductance, we see a trend where skin conductance for this person during this recording was continually going up. Skin conductance has no ideal good value, although most people are between 0 and 5. Typically, if a person shows increasing stress, they're going to be holding in that skin conductance value. They're not going to be recovering during these recovery activities. So we can see right here, this person there's a tiny bit of recovery after the math task, but otherwise they're just holding the stress. But is this significant or not is the question. And from my perspective, if they have an increase of more than 100%, then it is significant. This person is showing about an increase of 100%, but still it's within reason. So is this significant? This is not really sure. There's actually sort of a vague value to check at. So we'd have to probably look to see what the other values might suggest. I mean, on the flip side, this person had really cold hands and they're just relaxing into it the whole time to extremely warm, comfortable 32 degrees Celsius. So that's no issue. And similarly, the respiration is going up during stressors, but then recovering reasonably well afterwards. So maybe not much of an issue. Anyway, that's sort of a bit of a tangent. All right. So I'm going to close down this Excel report. When you actually create these, you can decide if you wanted to, save as, put somewhere else on your computer. That's A-OK. These reports can always be regenerated rather quickly, so it's not much of an issue when it comes to that. So I'm going to look at the other aspects of the protocol a little bit quicker right now because I realize I've been going quite slowly. And for all of you, there's only 25 minutes left, so we want to probably see this stuff a little bit faster. The relaxation profile is a script used when you're aware that the person does want to continue training with you or coming into the office to learn how to better handle the reasons that brought them there. As I suggested before, the relaxation profile script is really about trying different relaxation or mindfulness meditation techniques with the individual and seeing what works best. Dr. Khazan already gives a suggestion of how to order the certain activities. So activity number 1 is automatic baseline, where they're not doing anything actively. And then she has suggestions of what to do for the other relaxation activities. But you can always go off and do your own, which you prefer. The vast majority of these, actually, I'm pretty sure all of these, we have scripts for the relaxation meditation scripts. And so it's not like it's a mystery what to do. You just go there, you can read that to the client, see how they work well with it, and then you compare the data at the end. In terms of the actual active data, it looks very the same as what we saw before, just slightly different colored background. But either way, it looks nice. If you were to briefly show it to the client, they'd be like, ooh, it looks pretty. Maybe this is more authentic than something that looks ugly. That's, a silly thing to say, but still, people care about how it looks, and I'm sure you guys do care about how it looks a little bit. So instead of, actually click here. When we get to the end of each activity, it just tells you, time for technique number 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. It gives you the suggestion, and then it reminds you that just let them know they have 3 minutes to sort of get into their relaxation mode as you go through that script with them. I'm going to generate the Excel for that real quick. It's not going to look very different, but still it's important to look at. So relaxation profile looks similarly as the previous Excel in the sense that we look at the same types of statistics, muscle tension, skin conductance, temperature, heart rate, respiration, and the 2 heart rate variabilities. For whatever techniques you used, and actually type them in right here. So I don't know, mindful breathing, and it automatically gets applied further down into the graphs to say, that's what the technique was. You can print this out if you want, or just show it to them quickly on the computer, and then they realize, oh, see, during technique number 4, you did really well. Your finger temperature up really high, so clearly that was really resonating well with you. And maybe we'll focus on using that sort of method for your relaxation therapy, something like that. So it's very simple. I'm just going to close this down. By the way, again, if people have any questions or comments, please just throw them at me. I'm A-OK with that. Now, The resonant frequency assessment is, I think 5 years ago is when people really got all excited about resonant frequency assessments, and everyone wanted to do one, and everyone has a question of how to do it properly, and there's still tons of questions from everyone on how to do it properly. This is just a variation of that I designed with Dr. Khazan, where we really separate the information into independent activities instead of having it as continuous. I'm just going to click the replay button so we can have a look at that. Resonant frequency assessment, as you might expect, only involves looking at data from respiration and heart rate. We don't care about the other sensors because we're really trying to assess at what breathing rate the person performs that achieves the highest amount of heart rate variability. Now, this assessment itself, it starts at 7 breaths per minute and goes down to 4.5. The total duration of it is just 9 minutes, and so it's really 1.5 minutes at each activity. Based on Dr. Khazan, her perspective and what she's done, she thinks she might want to increase this to be a little bit longer, and so we might make it a little bit longer at a future date, but if we update that, anyone who already purchased the suite gets the updates for free, so there's no real worry about that. There's no data coming in here just because this is replayed data, and so this is just sort of an unsaved moment, but if we were plugged into this live, there would be data in here and it'd be your chance to describe to the client exactly what we're going to be looking at, what is this resonant frequency and why is it significant, and how we just need them to sort of sit still and relax. So if we just jump right into this, all the person has to do, since they do have to view the screen, is they need to follow the pace of their breathing and just continue breathing with a little blue ball. And so as the ball goes up, they inhale. When it sort of peaks, they hold the breath, and as it descends, they exhale. And again, when it gets to the bottom, they briefly hold the breath. It's a very simple and straightforward. Some clients do have difficulty following it just because, it's unnatural to pace your breathing if you've never done it before. But that's why you just have to sort of chat with them a little bit about it. In the graphs down here, you can see if they're actually following it well. We see the blue line as it goes up and goes down, and we see if they're able to track that. A little quick question. Sorry, I missed how long you said the script is. The script is only 9 minutes long, so it's 1.5 minutes for each breathing rate. And since each breathing rate is 7, 6.5, 6, 5.55, it's 1.5 minutes at each little step as we go down. From Jillian, what is the age range of clients that this suite can be used with? The suite is usable with any client of any age. Dr. Khazan specifically treats adults, so it's adult focused, but if you want to use it with someone who's younger, it's absolutely no problem with that. The relaxation scripts are all appropriate regardless of age. And I'd say I would think the only one difference between doing this sort of biofeedback with an adult and a child is just getting the child to sit still and listen. When the breathing activity is done, it automatically goes to this break. So it lets you know it's a chance where the person can actually breathe more normal if they're having difficulty following that. And so Dr. Khazan originally found that if we were to run a resonant frequency assessment continuous, where they go from 7 breaths and go down to 4.5 without breaks in between, she finds clients have a harder time following it. So that's why she wanted these breaks in between. So you give a minute or two, ask the person how they're doing, if they're doing okay, and then get ready for them to follow the pacer once more, click a key, and then it automatically goes to the next step, which is 6.5 in this example, and then it keeps going down. So I'm not going to sit here the whole time. We're just going to close out of this. And if we jump into the database, resonant frequency assessment. Now, for assessing what breathing rate provides their greatest heart rate variability, Dr. Khazan's book goes into a lot of details on this, and I reference back to that in the software manual. She likes to use the eyeball technique, where you're really checking to see where there's coherence between the heart rate increase and decrease and the respiration increase and decrease. And so in the graphs, we allow for them to look at that data and really check to see where there's the greatest amount of matching. That being said, we also introduced an Excel report where we look at the pure numbers. And so that's an alternate possibility. But the pure numbers just gives you a different reference point, but I think you have to sort of amalgamate all the information you have in together. So if we look at the Excel report, it's just a very simple table where it shows the pacer rate the person was supposed to follow, what their actual breathing rate was, and then it shows these two heart rate variability statistics that we look at continuously over the course of the suite. And we've already marked exactly which statistics are highest, and we also mark exactly when the person does not follow the breathing rate because they have difficulty doing it. So in this example, you see where there's a red square is, or pinkish square. They're supposed to be breathing at a 4.5. They breathed at 6.8 because they just weren't capable of breathing that slowly, which is not their fault. It's hard breathing that slowly. And so if we look at these actual HRV stats, we notice that the values, they're reasonably close to each other. Oddly enough, the highest is 94. The person is supposed to be breathing at 4.5 breaths, but they're actually breathing around 7. Notice up here breathing around 7 as well. So it seems actually for low frequency percent total power, a higher respiration rate is probably better for them, but still it's quite close for all the other values. In terms of heart rate max minus min, we can see that actually about 6.5 is the highest. But again, 7 or 6 is still reasonably high, and then it goes down a little bit lower. So it's not always clear-cut, these resonant frequency assessments. And so if you look at the pure numbers right here, we get a general idea, but it's not always suggesting, oh, it's this value, and it's really easy to know. So what I want you to get from that is that you can look at the raw data as one might. You can also look at the Excel report to look at the pure numbers, and that's arranged easily for you. And so we give you multiple possibilities of looking at this information and coming to your conclusions about that. John, again, is this data manually artifacted first? Yeah, you do have to artifact the data in case they were generating a lot of artifacts in the heart rate signal that they're using. I'm skipping the artifacting part just because I'm not walking you all through the steps of how to do everything. We only have a limited time, unfortunately. So we're actually down to the last aspect of the software that I want to show, and that is the training screens or the training protocols. Oop, one more question. Do you find the EKG produces better results? It really depends, actually. If you're doing research, then you automatically want to use the EKG just because people tend to have a quite biased opinion against it, especially people in the sort of MD fields, because they always use EKGs, even though BVP still produces a pretty good signal. That being said, it really depends on your preference. And so EKGs can give you a better signal if you're good at placing the electrodes, and if you're comfortable. Sometimes the best placements are not exactly placements that do not require the person to take off their shirt. That being said, the BVP sensor, you can just put it on someone's finger or thumb, and then you're getting quite reliable data automatically. It is slightly more prone to artifacts just because if a person fidgets their thumb, it'll produce, those little sort of ticks in the signal of fake readings. But it's really your perspective. I prefer BVP because it takes 5 seconds to put it on. EKG takes longer amount of time, and it depends. Have them roll up their shirts, have them roll up the legs. It's really, I think, a preference, but either are good. So for the training protocols, we've automatically split them into these categories that Dr. Khazan prefers. There's a few additional display screens that aren't included in these categories, but I'll show you in a second. I can just go find those. Either way, you'll notice the major differences here is that it tells you what modalities you're looking at. So 4 EMGs, or EMG microbreak, EMG SC temps, that's muscle tension, skin conductance, temperature, and then there's respiration and heart rate variability. And you notice at the end of it, there's either 1 monitor or 2 monitor versions. And so we focus in on very specific statistics based on we focus on the data displays based on being 1 or 2 monitor. I could record using live data right here, but I think I'm just going to still choose my sample data because it'll be faster, especially with the limited amount of time we have. So I'm going to open up the 1 monitor training for respiration and HRV. Just replaying this data. Now, again, one of the key things I want to point out that to you is that a lot of these numbers are familiar, and you've probably seen them in other software applications or even BFE suites. We just arrange them to be in much more pleasant to look at manner and much, much better for the person. For the clinician using it, as well as a client who probably has to look at the screen to interact. We've also included instructions either directly on screen or in the software manual that tell you how to load up every single one of these, how to set the parameters of every single one of these display screens. So right here's a quick example where I give you all the information of the purpose, how you clinically set it up, and it keeps on going into so much detail. This took a lot of time to write, so I hope at least one person will effectively read the software manual and learn how to use the screens as intended. Now, in this particular example of the respiration and heart rate variability training protocol set, The screens generally go from sort of simpler activities to more complicated. So when a person starts doing breath training, they're probably going to use this pacer. And you follow the pacer, and then you can see right down here if they're correctly following it or not. Although this grass down here looks nice, it's not some sort of interactive thing. It's actually just a background picture. It's meant to just be relaxing, pleasing, grass growing as they breathe. I'm pretty sure in a future version we're actually going to change this to be an animation of grass growing. I already have it. I just haven't really shown it to Dr. Khazan, so she hasn't had a chance to see if she really likes the idea of a person when they breathe well, the grass slowly grows taller, although I think it's extremely entertaining. Just moving along, screen number 2, we just take away the pacer, see if the person's able to breathe on their own without any problem. And so again, just looking at this raw respiration and the heart rate as it increases and decreases, we can see this heart rate max minus min statistic as it goes up and goes down as the person does his breathing effectively or not. Screen 3, there's sound. It's going to take a moment for that to kick in, but I don't think you're going to be able to hear it. I created a lot of the feedback sounds this time because there's a lot of atrocious feedback noises otherwise that you might get stuck with. Either way, this screen is really just to test their ability to breathe at a good rate that produces high heart rate variability in terms of heart rate max minus min. This individual has a heart rate max minus min of, well, above 30 at this point, so they shouldn't be doing any heart rate variability training at all. Ideally is for someone who has, between 0 and 10, so they'd start down here and they're trying to get above the threshold. Unfortunately, this person is too good at this. If I change this threshold to be much higher, then it becomes more difficult, and you can see where there's feedback in here. The line changes this pinkish red when they're below. It'll turn the green when it's above. There's also feedback music. You can't hear it very well, but it's sort of this nice, easy sort of tone signal playing. I don't really have time, I don't think, to go into too much detail now. And then we have some more familiar screens right here, where this is heart rate variability, where we're looking at the percentage, the spectral frequency in terms of percentage of total power. You need to get about 1 minute of data in here before these bar graphs actually fill up. But the key thing I want you to see is that, it should be indicative of what the person's supposed to do. They should understand, arrow goes up, I want to bring that up. Arrows go down, I want to bring that down. And it's more sort of a straightforward thing to understand. Once these readings are on the correct side of the thresholds, then this animation will activate. I'm not going to lie, I'm a cat person. I made sure I added an animation of a cat trying to play with string. We also added an animation of a puppy also, so don't worry if you have that dog-cat problem. You can choose whichever animal you prefer, and you can totally have that one as the feedback display. These aren't fixed. We just made some selections, so if you wanted to change this, all you have to do is right-click and go to Edit Instrument Settings before the beginning of the session, and then you get to change what that exactly is. There you go. So the person's now increasing this low frequency, the green one, and making the other two go down. And so this little cat animation is activated, and he's going to play with that string, and eventually his friend will come and join him. It's silly, it's cute, but it makes it more interesting for someone. So let me just close this, and let's have a quick look at... I'll show you the 2 monitor versions of this real quick by comparison. Oop, question coming in. From Horst, for the dual monitor screens, is there a way of telling the program which side portion of the dual screen to show on which monitor? Example, most Biograph dual screens are oriented so that the client screen is on the right side. What if you want the client monitor to be left of the therapist? Unfortunately, it automatically makes the assumption that the screen is on the right side of the person. Hold on. We automatically assume, yes, it's the same problem. Okay, so everyone has the computer set up on the other direction. Yeah, unfortunately, no. We automatically assume that the clinician is on the left side and the client is on the right. But from my perspective, usually it just means that you have to place the client's second monitor on the other side, and then you can just sort of, when you slide off a window in this direction, it'll automatically appear on the other monitor. From my perspective, that's an easy solution, but maybe not ideal for what you guys want. Unfortunately, that's something that is not really easy to change. I would change that purely from the perspective of screen resolution, playing around with these guys where you can arrange them 2 or 1. It depends on which monitor size you want, or side you want. Oops, there we go. Where was I going? Okay, quickly 2 monitor. There we are. So This is what you'd be looking at as the clinician for the 2-monitor, what I'm showing right now. Actually speed this up to get these graphs filled, although it's pretty familiar what it's supposed to look like. And then on the client side, it's just a pacer, and they can see these little bar graphs or versions of them that mirror the ones on the clinician side. And so they can tell if they're going higher or lower, even though they're supposed to focus on this bar graph. We'll see these change as it goes. Similarly, same sort of thing. Clinician's monitoring this one, and we have a little feedback animation here that kicks in. This is actually the dog one, but it's not activating immediately. And then similar sort of feel we saw before in one monitor. We have training statistics, and then we have this large graph where they all see is the line graph and potentially the signal. All right, about 5 minutes left, so let me just jump over to the physiology stuff. Physiology, the non-heart rate variability. All right, for training muscles, it's very simple, straightforward. This is really familiar. It's really just a bar graph trying to get the person to keep their muscle tension below the set threshold. And they get also audio feedback. You can't hear it, but it's actually pleasant. It's not crappy. It took me hours to create these sounds. So if you want to insult it, please email me the insults. But otherwise, just tell me to my face that you like it. It's hard to find good things that a lot of people agree to. We can see how the signal goes red when the EMG is too high, and otherwise they have this green light that turns on and off to let them know if they're doing well or not. That's for 2 muscles. Sorry, before it was for 1 muscle. Here's 2 muscles. They have 1 on each side. It's very easy, very straightforward. For skin conductance, it's a little bit less intuitive when one would be training with skin conductance, but went for this certain image of relaxation and the tree and the leaves spinning when the skin conductance goes down. The threshold's actually set automatically, so it's really just checking to see when the person's skin conductance is going up and down based on a certain small percentage. I believe the percentage is like 10% change. And there's nice, easygoing, quiet relaxation music playing. And so I really like this screen. It does sort of invoke a certain pleasantness sort of idea of trying to relax and calm yourself and just see the leaves spinning around with a nice background. Again, we wanted to make this look good. We wanted to make it look good and have a good feel instead of just some ugly line graph with a black background. Temperature is a little bit harder to train, especially in terms of visual feedback, because it's never too obvious. A lot of times people close their eyes and do sort of relaxation training, which makes sense. If they by chance do want to do sort of feedback using an on-screen display, as the temperature goes up, they light the matches. And so it's nice, obvious. We have a sub-out animation you can use where it's actually an ice cube melting, but some people, when they look at the ice cube, they automatically think cold, and so it goes against their ability to warm up with their own hands naturally. Either way, this is how we set up the design. And we have this quick little combo as well. Not this screen. The 2-monitor version has a combo where we look at skin conductance and temperature together. But otherwise, we have the simple sort of sunrise animation with a sort of dusky background and things like that. We're sort of running out of time, everyone. So I realized that this has been a quick and albeit a little bit limited open house or look at these different display screens, but I'm hoping you're getting a good idea whether this is something that interests you or not. Just jumping over at the 1-monitor and 2-monitor stuff, I can show this real quick. I mean, what the client sees is very simple. What the clinician sees is a little bit more information. Yeah, here's one of the combo screens where the clinician looks at temperature and skin conductance. This is really good if the person's trying too hard. If they start trying too hard at temperature, you see the skin conductance goes up, and this lets us track that rather easily. And the client doesn't have to look at these stats. All they have to see is the arrow that's going up and getting these matches lit. There's also feedback music, which is probably not easy to hear, but it's there as well. One thing I have not shown is the 4 muscle protocols. So it's really, we saw the equivalent of 2 muscle sensors being used, where it's just 2 arrows pointing down. The 4 muscles is the exact same. It's just there's 4 arrows instead, and you get to see that. And so it lets you know that what tension is in each muscle as you keep training. So if we have any last questions, please feel free to shoot those in. Otherwise, we're going to bring this session to a conclusion. One thing I think I did not mention, but I did want to say to you all, is that I realize many of you do not want these Excel reports in English, just because your clients don't speak English, and that is a natural desire. If you actually just were to change the Excel report and provide it in whatever language you prefer, I can just integrate that in. It takes me a few seconds, so I don't really mind. So if you use, I don't know, Polish, Russian, Tagalog, pick a language, and if you change it for us, then we will just let you use that automatically integrated into your assessment. It's very easy for me to do, as long as someone else has the translation of the language that they want. Which 4 muscles does she typically use? It's actually not something that she uses specific muscles for. I think she actually prefers the idea of just having more sensors on the neck and the shoulders and maybe lower back, but she does not specifically say. In her book, she does give you ideas of 2 muscle sites for placement, which I've actually copied in the software manual, but naturally I don't remember off the top of my head. I've even the model in the photo for the muscle sensors, but let's see. Yeah, okay, so she uses what? Frontalis, the lower back, the shoulders, and then mastoid, the mastoid placement. This actually should be slightly higher. And there we go. Oh, my big head. Excellent. And then temporal to mastoid placement. Those are the different ones. But for 4 sites, I think she actually was experimenting with probably looking at 2 normal sites and then trying some other placements. It just opens up more possibility to see how much more of the body is relaxing. All right, so with this, we're pretty much coming to the end of this session. So I'd like to thank everyone who did attend the whole time, and thank you very much for your questions and things like that. I like doing this sort of open house. It's easy, it's relaxing. For those of you who have attended and can see this right now, we are giving you a coupon code. It will give you 10% off the purchase of the Mindfulness Suite and or the purchase of Dr. Khazan's Mindfulness Online Class. So she is running an online class with us at the beginning, well, at the beginning of May, during May, not May, April, during April, should I say. And so if you are interested in buying either one of these or both of these, this will give you 10% off both of them. And this coupon code will last for the next month. So we're not having you immediately rush to buy it. But if this does interest you, this product and or this class, then please come join us. The class itself in April runs from 10:30 to some 10 to 11:30 Eastern time for Canada and US, which corresponds to 4 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. in France, Italy, and Germany. We find this time zone tends to be best for getting people from North America and Europe into the sessions, whereas earlier or later times don't work so well. Oops, some people saying thank you very much for the information. You're welcome, Sylvana Afshan Horst. And one last remark. If any of you happen to be going to AAPB, which is in Seattle, US, coming in March, I will be there. I'll be actually at the BFE table we have. So if you want to come meet me in person and see if my voice matches this image you've built up of me, then come say hi. I'll gladly chat with you. See you at AAPB, Jillian. All right, perfect. So if you have any last questions, I'd say right now is the time to send those in, comments. If not, thank you very much. If you have any general questions for the BFE, please feel free to email us at shop@bfe.org. Otherwise, if you want to send me a question, you can always do that. I'm happy to answer them. I'm research@bfe.org. All right, let's check this. Any last questions, comments? Nope, just a lot of people saying thank you. Thank everyone who attended. And with that, I guess I'm going to close down this session. So again, thank you for your attendance. Thank you very much for the other BFE people who are hiding here in the background. And I do have to say thank you, Thought Technology, as our primary sponsor. With them, it would not be possible for the things we do. And again, hopefully, we'll see from you all soon. All right? Excellent. All right. One more questions? Yep. Bye-bye, everyone.